Hi guys, AnimeScale here. Today we are comparing two of the most talented ninja the Uchiha clan ever had, Itachi and Shisui. This one is especially interesting since most people don't often give Shisui the credit he deserves, since we don't see much of him. Leave a like to support the channel and turn on the notification bell to never miss upcoming videos. Now let's get straight into the video. We all know Itachi was a ridiculously talented genin. He was a child prodigy who punched well above his weight class. There is a reason he became a genin at 7, after all. What most people don't realize, however, is that Shisui was just as much of a genius. In fact, the earliest we ever see him as a genin, he already has a 3-tomo Sharingan. Now, using his Sharingan, he would obviously beat Itachi, since at this point Itachi hadn't awakened it yet. But even without activating the Dojutsu, Shisui would win, mid to low difficulty. At some point during a mission, we see Itachi and Shisui defending a Leaf Shinobi from some of Danzo's Foundation Anbu. Both Shisui and Itachi should, on paper, be nowhere near able to take on 3 high-ranked Jonin, but we all know how that turned out. At this point, Itachi has his 2-tomo Sharingan and more than holds his own against one of the attackers. Shisui, however, proves again to be stronger, being able to handle 2 Anbu members at once. He's also very good with the body flicker technique, a high-speed movement ability that would make other people think they're practically teleporting. That might not seem too dangerous at first, until I tell you that Shisui was also called Shisui of the body flicker, so everyone else definitely thought this was a big deal. With one more tomo than Itachi, more experience, and a powerful technique as the body flicker, Shisui takes this one. Around the time when Itachi first joins the Anbu, we see that Shisui has become a Jonin. Itachi is stupidly impressive, of course, since he did end up joining the Anbu when he was just 11. Really, there isn't anyone else stronger at his age. Shisui, however, like we've said, is much older and every bit as much of a genius as Itachi is. Danzo himself even said that Shisui was the most talented Uchiha he had ever seen, and he'd know, since watching Uchiha was all he did. Shisui was so scary as a Jonin that just him going to the Mist Village was enough to scare away a team of Jonin led by Ao, just because they didn't want to face him. There's no doubt in my mind that Shisui would still win in a fight, though Itachi still has a few years to catch up to him. This is an interesting fight because it's the first close one of this video. I did mention that Itachi had a few years to catch up to Shisui, and 2 years later, he almost had. Itachi is now much stronger than he was before. In just 2 years, he went from being just a member of the Anbu to being a full-blown captain. Managing all of that at the age of 13 is ridiculous, and Itachi was already one of the strongest people in the entire village. Shisui, however, was still probably a bit stronger. We actually do have a reference for this in the Ninja Storm games. After a sparring match, Shisui does say he's now beaten Itachi more times than he's beaten him. So they're both probably pretty comparable to one another, except there's one difference. Itachi had been going all out while Shisui never did. Remember, he had the Mangekyo from when he was a genin, and he never used this against Itachi, so he was more than holding back a little. Even without that, Shisui could fully use 3 different chakra natures, was even better at Shuriken Jutsu than Itachi, and he had his famous body flicker. There's no doubt he was stronger than Itachi at this point, though the gap isn't nearly as big as it used to be. This comparison is basically the same as the last one. At some point, Shisui joins the Anbu after becoming a Jonin. We don't really know the exact timescale here. Maybe it happened a year later, maybe a couple of months later. Doesn't really matter either way. The fight would still play out the exact same way. At best, Shisui and Itachi might both be stronger, but they'd still relatively be just as strong. Once again, Shisui would take this fight. Now we need to take some time to talk about the 2 Mangekyo Genjutsu, some of the strongest in the entire series. I don't want to keep bringing these 2 up later on, so they'll have their own section. Tsukiyomi can of course compress time, putting the opponent in a Genjutsu world where they can experience hours, days, months, or even years of psychological torture in a single second. It's pretty much a one-shot, enough to put Kakashi in a coma when Itachi used it on him. Koto Matsukami is more subtle, putting your opponent under your complete control without them ever realizing it. You don't so much beat them as make them your unknowing slaves, which I suppose is just as much of a victory. Now, which one is better? Koto Matsukami takes the lead here, since it's a jutsu that you can't fight against. since you'll never know if it hit you to begin with. The technique can be as subtle as you want, from subtly making you a different person to overpowering even the Edo Tensei. It's such a strong technique that the manga went out of its way to give it a 10-year limit between uses. It's just a much more versatile technique, while also being just as deadly as the Tsukuyomi. Sure, it has a time limit between uses, but that doesn't matter in a 1 versus 1, where it's an insta-win anyway. During his fight against Yagura, Itachi unlocks yet another ability, Amaterasu, and it more or less burns Yagura to a crisp, despite the 4th Mizukage being a perfect Jinchuriki. This is of course a new level of power and definitely makes Itachi a lot stronger than he was before. Up against him, we have a non-canon version of Shisui from the Ninja Storm games. Here, Shisui has access to his Susanoo. Having even a base Susanoo is more than enough for Shisui to shield himself from Amaterasu. Not to mention that Shisui could also dodge Amaterasu, being one of the fastest ninjas of the Leaf. Back to his Susanoo, it has the unique ability of being able to throw out tons of needles made out of pure chakra from its body, instantly destroying anything it sees. Both having a stronger attack and defense, Shisui would win this fight. Itachi getting his own Susanoo makes this a very different story. Itachi possibly has the strongest Susanoo abilities out of anyone in the series, to the point where his Susanoo makes Shisui's look like a joke. Itachi's Susanoo has the Yatta Mirror. Any physical attack, no matter what it might be, gets instantly negated whenever it makes contact with the shield. That pretty much immediately takes care of anything Shisui can now throw at Itachi. To get past Shisui's defenses, he has the Totsuka Blade. The Totsuka Blade will instantly seal anyone it comes into contact with, no matter what it is. This would definitely be more than enough to break through Shisui's Susanoo in a straight-up fight. Combining the two gives Itachi the perfect offense and defense, something Shisui just can't compete with. Things only get worse when considering Edo Itachi. Before, Itachi was pretty much permanently nerfed from his illness and from the fact that he was going blind. Neither of them are a problem when he's at reanimation, which is an instant boost to his strength. He can now spam all of his crazy abilities as much as he wants. Shisui was having a hard time dealing with Itachi and his Susanoo when he was half blind. And now things are even harder thanks to his infinite chakra and increased stamina. Itachi would take this fight without all that much trouble. Of course, Shisui would still win with Koto Matsukami. After all, that's how Itachi broke out of Kabuto's reanimation in the first place. In fact, the Koto Matsukami is so broken, it would allow Shisui to beat just about anyone, even people he'd have no chance against otherwise. We're just assuming he doesn't have it on hand to make the fights more reasonable and interesting. That's it for this video. Leave your thoughts down in the comments. If there's a versus power scaling you want me to cover, let me know. As always, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. This is AnimeScale out. Bye!